Certainly one of the most important parts of estate planning is making sure we don't give assets to those who can't handle those assets. Minor children are the very definition of this. In Minnesota, that's anybody under the age of 18. Anybody under the age of 18 in Minnesota is not legally able to sign a contract, and therefore giving them money to where they have to open up a bank account or invest money or buy things doesn't typically put them in a very good position. We want to make sure we're controlling that. I think most parents will agree that that's almost secondary, though, to making sure we have the right person in charge who can care for that child as a person. That is a guardianship. Minnesota's default rules are going to name who that's going to be. You don't get a say in it unless you create a will. A will gets to overwrite those default rules. So at the minimum, when it comes to a family that has young kids, we got to get a will created so we can appoint who would care for those minor children. They don't get a say in that, so we as adults have to make sure we're taking responsibility for making sure those people are cared for by the right people. But in addition to that, of course, we've got these assets. Maybe I have life insurance that's going to pay out, retirement accounts, I've got this house that would get sold, and now we have this money that can be used for these young people. We don't want to just give it to them. The default is they'll get it, but they're going to get it through a conservatorship with the court. That's a very expensive procedure. We got to get somebody appointed to care for those children's money. And then at age 18, they get the whole thing. The conservatorship is done. Here you go. I sure hope that they are responsible and mature adults at age 18, because that's the default. Your kids will get the money. Don't worry about that. But are they getting it at the right time? And because of that, we need to talk about another thing, and that is how to create, it's called a testamentary trust. It's a trust that pops up out of the will based on some condition, and it's usually age. So what we're going to say is, hey, everything goes to the kids. If they're over 25, 30, 35, 40, whatever age you want, they can just have the money. But if they're under this age, we're going to manage it for them. We need a trustee. That's a manager. We need someone who can manage this money for them. And then we're going to determine what this money should be used for. A very common thing, doesn't have to be what we choose in your case, but a very common one and a well-used one is we're going to say, hey, anything for healthcare, anything for education, and then we want to maintain and support their lifestyle, make sure that the guardian is reimbursed and made whole for these expenses. But also after someone's 18 years old, maybe they need some additional help, and we can make sure that there's money available for that. Once they reach a certain age, they either get a portion of it or all of it. We talk through these scenarios and give some examples. But part one, make sure there's that right person who can care for the person themselves. Point two, make sure that we are appointing someone who can manage the money for that individual. I think what I see on do-it-yourself wills when there's young kids is I see someone paying attention to the guardian, because top of mind, that's where the most concerned. Where is this child going to go? And that's a very good thing to be focusing on. And we see people completely skip the assets. When I used to administer trusts for families, I would administer these trusts specifically. And these kids are not ready to get money at age 18. And in some ways, we believe that our life insurance and our assets are there to help our kids. And if we give it to them at the right time, I would argue it's actively harmful. So one thing we really need to be doing is focusing on what happens and how do we control that. So that's, in our minds, sometimes a secondary thing, but in some regards, just as important as making sure they've got the right care. We do a lot of planning for young families. We walk people through the probate process. Sometimes folks want to avoid probate, so they're going to do a trust instead of a will. And all of this comes down to getting started with that kind of basic estate plan. We've been doing this since we started doing planning. So since the firm opened, certainly. We have at least one attorney here who's been doing this since the early mid-2000s. And it's a big part of what we do. It's an incredibly important part of what we do. It's a very, very rewarding part of what we do. We've been doing it for a long time. Our clients hire our firm to represent them in their estate plan for a number of reasons. I think one of them is, honestly, we've had a lot of people say really good things about us. I believe we do very, very good work, and I believe people have made that known to their friends and family. So that's always the biggest compliment we can get, is when someone sends a family member of theirs to work with us as well. Financial professionals trust us, so we get a lot of financial advisors and accountants who send their clients our way to talk about their estate plan, their will, their trust, whatever it might be. More importantly, I think when someone comes to us without being a referral, they just research us online, I think from the minute they call us to the minute they get their kind of overview phone call with one of our staff, to the point where they're actually meeting with their attorney and spending some time talking about the things that are very important to them, their family, their loved ones, the things that they've been working for. I believe there's a level of comfort there, and I believe we really know how to talk to people in a way that isn't lawyerly. I think it's a friendly conversation, and we get a lot done in a very efficient way by working with people where they are. Client communication is one of our values as a firm. The policy within the firm is 8 business hours, but we're much faster than that. We usually try to get back to folks within an hour during weekdays, business hours. But more importantly than that, during the process, we are going to map out with the client when they will hear from their attorney. We are going to map out when there'll be a review call, when they're going to get documents. They're going to know what's going to happen at each step of the process. We are a small law firm. We're right on the corner of Minneapolis and Richfield. We're not downtown. And we have found our advantage to be, we can create a process that is very custom to each individual, rather than having to push that client through the large law firm with all of its many departments. We are able to create something that is very much focused on that family. Planning for young kids is always part of a larger and a broader estate plan. It always starts with the basics, at least doing a will, depending how folks feel about this probate process, this administrative process, maybe doing a revocable trust. But either way, it starts in the same place, and that is to contact our office, call us on the phone, send us an email through the website, whatever is easier for you, and you'll get connected with our client services director. She is great. She'll give you some cost options. It kind of depends on what you want to do. There's a couple ways to do it. She'll give you an idea about the process. If it looks like a fit, she'll tell you what you need to have prepared for that initial client meeting. She'll get you all the materials. You do not have to know anything coming in, but she'll give you that questionnaire to fill out. Do your best on that. I would argue that's one of the most important parts of the process. Either way, your attorney's going to go through it all with you, have some scenarios laid out for you, some examples of things that work well, walk you through the important things that you may not have thought of on your own. And that's really why we're here. It's an accessible process. We're told regularly that it was a lot easier than people thought it was going to be, and I'm confident that that'll be your experience as well.